Hey everybody, Danny Maude here. Thanks for joining us. How often do you play around a golf? Your driver goes amazingly well, but you suddenly strike your irons poorly. Or, and on a completely different day, now you strike your irons really good, but your driver now goes off the boil, or you're topping your fairway woods. How do you strike your driver, your fairway woods, and your irons consistently well, like the best players do on a regular basis? Well, the best players know what they should be doing at impact. There's a subtle difference between the driver, the fairway wood, and the iron strikes I want to share with you today because I think it could really help. Before I get into the video, look, if you're new to the channel, it's one of your first videos of mine, please consider subscribing. Just press that little bell button, next subscribe button, you get notified every time I release a video just like this one. Plus, you never have to remember a thing. I'll always put a free downloadable practice guide in the description box below. Great, so what do the best players do? What do they do differently between the irons, the fairway woods, and the drive? We're going to cover all three today. Well, it's very simple. The first thing they do, just to show you here, the stage one in this process, they have a swing where the club head naturally works upwards, it falls downwards to a low point, and then naturally flows back upwards. And it's that low point that is one of their major key differences in how they strike a golf ball. Let me show you what I mean. If I take an alignment stick here, okay, and you can see I've bent it so this is your backswing, this is your downswing, and look at this, there's a low point to that swing. Now, if you want to strike your irons well, slightly different to a fairway woods and driver, but if you want to strike your irons well, that low point is slightly ahead of the golf ball, maybe about 2 to 3 inches, okay? Can you see that? So we're actually striking the ball on the way down, and the club strikes the ground after the golf ball. I'll show you how to do that consistently in a second. So, what we need to do in order to start to kind of create that shape, so the low points afterwards, there's a stage to this, and I've covered a little bit of this in the last few weeks' videos. But the first thing is you need to make sure that you have the up bit in the swing on both sides. Then we'll talk about how you can get the low point consistent. So the up bit is super simple. We do not turn and turn. The swing isn't around and around. If you turn and turn around and around, there's no real up bit. So what you've got to have your body moving in such a way that's going to create this up, down, and up. So the first thing I want you to do, super simple, put your arms by your side, get some flexion in your lead side, some extension in your trail side. This is your backswing. This is your downswing, yeah? Now, because golf is also rotational, we're now going to keep this and we're going to add some pivot to this. So I'm going to get flexion in my lead side and I'm going to stretch over now to my trail foot. And notice this, I've got extension here in my trail side. This is what this extension here gives me the upward motion of the arc. I then come down naturally, and what gives me the upward motion on the way through? That's right, flexion and extension of my lead side. So you need to do these exercises to make sure that you first of all have a swing that is a swing, which is up, up, extension here, extension here. Now you have the up motion. Once you've felt that a few times and you start to kind of sense this motion up, down, and up again, we can then start to work on how you improve your low point. Check out this video in the top right hand corner where I go into much more detail on this exercise. But let's today concentrate on how to improve your low point of each of your clubs so you can improve your consistency of ball striking. Now, you need a feedback station to do this. Now, all I'm going to do here, I'm in my studio here, but there are different ways to do this. On a range mat, I've got a T-peg here. I'm going to scrape a line, look, on the ball line here, as a reference point. That's my ball line, and then I'm going to scrape another line here in front of the ball, maybe 2 or 3 inches. You could use foot powder spray on the golf course. You could use leaves. You could do all kinds of stuff in to give you some reference point as to where you're striking it. You could throw sand down. In fact, you could go into a practice bunker and you can draw a line where the ball is, okay? Draw a line then in front of that golf ball. Start to make some swings and identify where you are currently striking the sand relative to your ball line, right? So it's a great way of giving you some form of feedback. That is what you need. Once you've done that, okay, all we then do is start to hit some shots and try to get the ball and start to make contact with the ground after that golf ball. So TrackMan's here is going to show me what I'm doing, and you can see here, look, on TrackMan we've got a low point distance. That's going to show, it should be an A would be showing that I'm after the golf ball. If it's a B at the end of this, it'll show that I'm hitting before the golf ball. Let's have a look at this in action. So look at that there, look, I've got a 4.2 after the golf ball. That is what I'm doing. I'm hitting after the golf ball here. Distance carry with an 8-iron is 155. Total distance is 160. Let's see what happens now if I start to kind of swing and I start hitting maybe the ground behind the golf ball. Look at the difference here, look. So 1.6 behind the golf ball. Carry now has dropped off to 131. Why? Because what you do is not only does it affect the quality of your ball striking, the other thing it's doing is you're adding too much loft onto the golf club and you start to get into this chicken wing position here. More loft, you might hit it higher, but you just don't lose, you lose the distance, you lose the power, and more importantly, you start striking the ground, you're gonna lose your strike too. So how can you make sure that you get ahead of the line each and every single time? So because you've got your feedback station, doesn't necessarily guarantee, does it, that you're gonna hit it there. You might see it and go, why do I keep hitting behind that line? Well, the first thing I don't want you to do is this. I see a lot of people saying, well, should I look ahead of the golf ball? Well, the problem if you do that, you might start to chop at the golf ball and start to trying to chop down and trying to hit the ground there. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, you've missed stage one out. We hit the ground, but look, you're staying in flexion. We aren't extending through the shot. Remember, there needs to be an upward motion. If you're just chopping at the golf ball, that's never going to work. What you're doing is you've got to make sure that you still have a flowing swing, and you've got to trust the feedback station to gradually make the subtle changes. There's always going to be a natural shift of pressure moving over to this lead side. So if you go up and up, just keep swinging. And if you're in the bunker doing this, simply keep going. You might start striking the ground behind the golf ball, just keep swinging up and up until eventually you start to strike the ground after the golf ball. And you've got as simple feedback as that. But never, never, never try to do it. This destroys so many golf swings, all right? So let's have a look at fairway woods and how fairway wood slightly differs to this. So moving on to fairway woods, do you find that sometimes if the ball's on a tee with a fairway wood, you can actually hit it okay, but when the ball's on the ground, you can't. Now, why is that? Well, look, using this arc again, if your low point is too far behind the golf ball, if the ball's teed up, you can get away with that. Maybe the fairways are longer, you've got longer grass, you can hit it off longer grass. Why? Because your low point is behind the ball teed up, you can hit up on the ball and you get away with it. The problem is when the ball is on firm ground, you need to make sure that your low point, at the very least, is just below the ball. The best players have it slightly ahead of the golf ball, not as much as irons, maybe just a couple of inches. Now that's way too precise. So how do you go about developing that skill with your fairway woods? Well, same principles apply. You still need the same swing, the up motion, and then the up motion extension on the way through, all those things you need. We're going to put the feedback station in place, so we've still got the lines here. The difference now is as opposed to having these lines maybe 4 or 5 inches apart, I'm going to move the ball now in between these lines. Now, all that basically is me pushing the ball slightly further forward in my stance. And again, I'm going to use the same principle. I'm going to focus on where that club is making contact with the ground. Nothing more complicated than that. Now, remember, I am still not trying to hit the ground on purpose. Why? Because that gets me what? Going down at the ball as opposed to look, extension and extension. There's always going to be a low point. So therefore, all you're trying to do is keep the beautiful flowing swing and start adjusting your low point very subtly as you swing backwards and forwards. Use it as a simple guide. So let's have a look at this in action. So I take my 3-wood, let's give it a bit of a smack. A little bit clean. Yeah, look at that. So that was a little bit clean. I hit here, look, 1.2 inches behind the golf ball. And that's got me, look, spraying it a little bit, look, behind and actually out to the right. Now, total distance is 260, carries 245. But that's not a great shot. Why? Because I probably leaned back a little bit. I've actually caught the ground a little bit behind the golf ball. So for me to make this more accurate, I've got to now start to shift that low point a little bit more ahead of the golf ball here. So let's have a look at this in action again. Let's see if I can get the low point now a little bit more ahead and see what that does to the actual shots. Okay, so look at that there. Low point there is 0.5 inches after the golf ball. That's made a difference of 260 yard carry almost with a 284 total. Have a look at the screen on the left hand side too. You can see the low point here is after the golf ball, just slightly. This is making a big difference to the distance and the quality of the strike that you're going to get. Just like the irons, if you hit up too much on the fairway, you're not going to strike it so good. It's going to probably come out the lower point of the golf club too, losing you distance. Now, what changes do you make with driver? Well, with the driver, what we're going to do is we need to make sure that we actually hit up on the driver. Now, I know that some people say, well, I hit down on it, it works absolutely fine. Well, it does. Some top players do hit down on driver for accuracy. But distance, for starters, science has proven that if you hit up on the driver, it makes the biggest difference. So look at this here. All we're going to do, we're going to shift the low point now behind the golf ball by 2 or 3 inches. So that's the motion. We want to hit it up on the driver. How do you go about achieving that? Well, all I'm going to do now is this. There's a couple of different ways to do that. Don't do it with the 3-wood. You grab your driver, and what I want you to do is you just need to get the sensation. I did this with a recent student of mine. So many players with driver, again, they're staying too much, look, in flexion in the lead side here and going around and around. That's never going to get you getting the low point behind the golf ball. Notice it here, look. If I want to get that low point behind the ball, if I start to go into extension here, my body starts to go almost backwards through impact here, and that's going to get me hitting up on the ball. What I don't want you to do though is this. I see golfers going, oh, I want to try and hit up on the ball. They push the ball forward, correct. They get their pressure maybe a little bit more back. That's okay too. But then what they do is they stay back here trying to hit up on the ball. We don't do that. What I want you to do instead is this. 2 options here, or you can join them 2 together. Make some swings, and I got a recent student of mine, Jeff, doing this. I got him to almost look way behind the golf ball, almost exaggerated. And look, I got him to literally throw the club downwards here behind the golf ball. What that does, when you throw the club down, the club's going to go like a catapult. If you throw it earlier, or feel like you're throwing it early, it goes like a catapult, and naturally, if the low point's going to be feel like it's way behind, you start to hit up on the golf ball. Wonderful, by the way, if you slice, because slicers never throw the club here, they throw it here, okay? Now, the second thing I did with a student of mine, this also works, is this. I got him to push away from the target. What I mean by that is this, same principles. If you want to hit up on the ball, if I oppose the force's club, so I push away from the target and throwing the club. I don't go with the club. I am literally pushing it, throwing the club away and pushing away from this. That then, as you push away from the target, that naturally gives you a upward and powerful angle, okay? You grab hold of this end of the golf club and you will pull that way and I pull this way. You're pulling away from the target. It's going to give you the strength. So look, I've got either releasing it behind here. That's going to give me the upward angle. I'm also pushing this into a ball position naturally further forward and maybe or push away from that, going backwards, and that's going to again release that club through the impact area. Let's have a look at this in action. Okay, look at that. 6.3, look behind the golf ball, really hitting up. 270 carry, so not a massive carry, 280 total. Ooh, we can do better than that. We can do better than that. So you can see, look at the graphic on the left-hand side, certainly behind the golf ball. So what I'm going to do now is keep that distance behind the ball, but really start to ramp up my speed. And let's see if we can really get some carry out of this. There we go, much better. 285 carry, 297 total. Still look with the 6.7 behind the golf ball. There we go. This is going to give me the upward angle. That's going to give me the power I needed to. What did I do different between the two? Simply let the club go, drop faster, speed it all up. But in summary, control your low point. Understand the difference between your irons, your fairway wood, and your driver. Irons, low point is roughly about 3-4 inches past the golf ball. Fairway woods, just a couple of inches. Driver, it's behind the golf ball. What changes do you make? Use the feedback station. Make sure you draw a line here to have some feedback. Throw some sand down around a golf ball, go into a practice bunker, play around in a practice bunker, doing exactly the same thing. And remember, with all of this, still the golf swing has extension in the trail side on the backswing, extension in the lead side. At no stage are we trying to throw the body behind the ball on driver or throw the club down ahead of the golf ball with your irons. These are all things that aren't golf swings. It is keeping this lovely upward motion and upward motion on both swings, just subtly altering the low point as you go. How do you time all this? Like any sport, just with some practice, all right? So I hope this helps to get you striking the ball with all of your clubs. Now, if you'd like the video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with some of your friends who you feel could do some help with one element of these, whether it's a fairwood or their driver, or maybe even their irons. And remember, look, there's a free downloadable practice plan in the description box below, so you never have to remember a thing. And if you're new to the channel and you want to join the community, it's completely free to do so. Just press that subscribe button and the bell. But until next week, have a great golfing week.